Hello and welcome to Municipal Matters here on your TV, another Zoom version. I'm your host, York Bellsmith, this time joined by Municipality of Port Hope Mayor Bob Sanderson. Good afternoon, Bob. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us again. How are you holding up?
We're holding up very well, thanks to all the support we're getting from everybody. So it's still a tough go. Every time you think you want to feel frustrated or upset, I just think about how bad it is for a lot of other people.
Well, yeah, that is definitely true. And today, a bit more of an emotional day as well, as you attended the repatriation along the Highway of Heroes.
Yep, and if anything, will remind you, of how valuable it is to be Canadian, how valuable it is to have people protecting us like that fallen soldier did. It was rather emotional, and I'm really proud, excuse me, to have been on the bridge and to see our fire department and our police properly spaced, and then we had pipers along the highway. It truly showed a great deal of respect, and as I said, these things seem like a minor inconvenience sometimes compared to that kind of a situation.
Well, you got to think too about what it means for the families that are in the procession that's going along the Highway of Heroes, but also those that come out and that did insist on coming out. And I witnessed all the social distancing today too. It does give you that sort of sense of feeling a community that a lot of people have kind of lost lately.
And I think it's being strengthened through this. I don't know. It just seems that people are having a little bit more respect and understanding. On a municipal level, we still deal with all the trivia, but I think that's just normal. But it does put it into perspective for sure. So
Absolutely.
great ceremony, and there's a great tradition here in Port Hope and Northumberland County to respect these situations, and I think we continue to do so. It was very strong, and as I said, very very emotional, and puts things into perspective. Talking about the people in the procession, they were obviously feeling a lot of emotion too, because they were waving as they're going by, and as much as it is awful to lose somebody, to see that amount of respect provided made me very proud.
Well said. Absolutely. So Premier Doug Ford has loosened up some more restrictions, including some businesses that can open up for curbside service, those retail businesses with front doors, garden centers and such, as well as hardware stores. Talk to us about how that's going to affect operations going forward as of this weekend in Port Hope.
Well, from our perspective, that just news came out today, but I
Right.
think we're sort of slowly getting used to it. There'll be certain parameters on it, so the front doors can be open on curbside pickup. So there's still some fairly, I think, good parameters around doing the business, but I think it's extremely critical, particularly for our smaller businesses, to at least get back into the fray a little bit. And along with that, we'll be strongly promoting, shop local, support local. They're kind of words before to some degree, but I think now they're going to hit home a little bit harder. I hope these folks really do need as much support as we can possibly give them. The parameters I hope will continue to loosen up a little bit, but I totally agree with the step-by-step process. If we do too much at one time, we can't manage it. And I want to think that we can maintain the respect and the concerns we have for ourselves and each other. So I think it'll be an orderly progression, but it can't come soon enough. There's people who really just number one need to shop to some degree, avail themselves of services. But many of these people in small business, this is their life savings at risk here.
Right. And if you go around and take a look at the jerseys of any sports team, minor sports teams throughout town, you're going to see the names of these businesses on there because they've been supporting the community their entire careers. And now's a really good time to keep that in mind as they're going to be asking for our support. And again, shopping local.
Well, I think that lip service of community is going to be strengthened. I mean, I feel it. I suppose like everybody does to some degree. We do start to take it very seriously. This business needs to stay with us, and unfortunately, I am pretty sure not every business will survive. We still have a long path ahead of us, but let's give as much support as we can. Our chamber's doing a great job. I think the businesses are supporting each other in supply chains. The competitive nature is there, but it's not a competitive as much as it is a collaboration.
Right. Absolutely. What do you want to say to the citizens? I mean, because everybody's chomping at the bit to get out. They want to go out and do stuff, but we have to do it smart, as you alluded to there, and the social distancing. And we don't want people flocking to places and just starting up another spread.
It's like being in a race. Don't give it up at the end. We put our heart and our soul into being, a clean community. We do not have any new cases here. We have gone to, I think, in some cases, extreme measures to protect ourselves. And I'm gratified to some degree to see it as I'm, coming around. People are wearing their masks. They're staying their distance, even though they probably know these people very well. And I know that some of the testing now is showing that asymptomatic cases are there. They've tested people who are totally healthy and found that they actually are carriers. So the best advice, quite frankly, is expect that you could be a carrier, and perhaps anybody around you could be. Pay attention to the requirements that are out there. They're for ourselves, but they're also for everybody. So I guess the key message is hang in there. It's been a long journey. It's not over yet. And this is not the time to fall down just when you're getting to the finish line.
And especially when Northumberland County has done so good, only 18 cases in Northumberland County. And that says a lot for the way the citizens here have adhered to these rules and taken the guidance.
Well, I'm glad to hear you also kind of refer to the entire county, because it's not just, Port Hope, it's not just Cobourg. I think Northumberland has really stood out. If you look at the maps, Northumberland has really done well. And we're not that remote. So, it
Right.
is because people have paid attention. If you're in a very remote community and nobody ever came there, maybe you wouldn't have as much to say, to applaud our citizens. But I think we're right next to Toronto. We're right next to major populations, and we've really done a good job. I think.
And of course, you restricted access to the river. Does any announcement from the provincial government going to change that, or is that going to dictate at all the timing of when access to the river may be given back?
Yep, I think mainly it was for opening day because we have a huge influx of people. We've got the message out there, and at this point in time, our municipality will remove those barriers on May 12th.
May
It
12th. Okay.
a requirement, to close them, supported by council. So I think, quite frankly, from our perspective, I don't see any reason that we should not be able to open those areas to normal trails and what have you. That was the biggest, situation for our local folks, is that closing those trails, they're very well used, and they're kind of at this point in time, needed to some degree.
Did you hear any reaction from fishermen specifically about the shutdown? Either way?
Only a couple local fisher peoples or anglers. They were probably not happy. As far as the angling groups and federations and what have you, we only got understanding and support. Nobody likes it. There's no question. We didn't like it either. But given that the ministry didn't shut it down, we have a history. We know how many people come in, and it was a very critical time. It still is, and we certainly hope when we take it down that we don't get an influx. I don't expect we will, quite frankly. I think the message is out there.
And that's the thing. There could be that influx. Does the municipality have plans, monitoring plans, and bylaw officers or police officers to make sure that everybody is acting responsibly with the physical distancing?
Absolutely. Everybody's on our toes, and I can tell you that our citizenry, feels the same as well. Not that people are trying to tell tales, but the reports come in when they see something that's inappropriate at this point in time. Usually, our enforcement officers or police, they get a call, and they go and they ask people to either distance, or they get the explanation. It was a family of four. Well, we don't know that until we sort of meet with them. So we're going to be very, very diligent. I think for quite frankly, several more weeks, and we'll slowly release some of the restrictions as managed by the provincial government and as supported by our health department.
Is there different situations where you would have a say? Maybe Port Hope's not ready to do something that the provincial government says is okay, or vice versa. How much freedom do you have as a municipality?
Well, I think our freedom is somewhat restricted with respect to, once they're allowed to open, they do have to open under certain criteria. That's where we have the ability to enforce, to a large degree. I don't think we're going to have a lot of enforcement. I think our citizenry has clearly demonstrated support. I think where the crux and the real issue will be is each individual owner needs to ensure that they're ready to open, they're comfortable, their staff or themselves are ready to open, that they've got the appropriate situations in place, whether it be line separation, however they handle it, cash transactions. I don't think anybody will open if they don't feel that they can perform the task appropriately. And in some of the conversations I've had with the province and task force, et cetera, probably the number one requirement, besides getting businesses open again, is how do you restore consumer confidence? And I
Right.
think the key to the whole thing, you can be open, but if nobody's coming into your facility or buying anything from you, what's the point of being open? So I think it's going to be a very strong requirement to identify under what conditions, I would go into a restaurant or a store, and I would like to know that the owner of that business is as cognizant and you know, making sure that everything they should be doing is being done. And then you have to kind of think, well, how do you let people know that? Like, how do I
Right.
know? Because you said it. So there's going to be some challenges.
Yeah, no, absolutely, for sure. And some of those challenges are going to be financial, with the finding the resources to set up these small businesses. That they're going to have to be some purchases to make this possible.
Yeah, but the government has done, I think a good start. I just think it can't all of a sudden go away, whether it be, no interest loans, whether it be, things that they can facilitate. I've had conversations, from a county economic development perspective. There's got to be a lot of collaboration, between the business owners, the chambers, and the governments, municipal, provincial, and federal. We need to pull this together, collaboratively and together. So it's
Right.
going to
And
be a bit of a task.
we've shown through this so far that we can all work together. We're going to take a quick break right now. Come back. We've got a lot of other things to talk about, including plans for the summer of 2020. When Municipal Matters continues here on your TV. Welcome back to Municipal Matters here on your TV, another Zoom edition, this time with Municipality of Port Hope Mayor Bob Sanderson. Bob, once again, thank you very much for joining us. Let's talk about municipal events for the summer of 2020. There was an email that went out today talking about what has in fact been canceled. How tough were these decisions to move ahead and cancel a lot of these events, including Canada Day?
Yep. Making the decision itself, I got to say, wasn't so hard. Getting to that conclusion really was difficult. It's kind of like the summer of non-events, and we know how important these events are, to the municipality, to people, to visitors. So the coming to that conclusion was probably a long process. It's kind of like finally acknowledge, this is real. We need to be probably more extreme. It's not a case of, at the end of May, the restrictions will be off and we can start having parades and what have you again. This is a long process.
Right.
And we're looking at how can we do alternate celebrations, how can we get other things happening. Our fall fair is canceled, Canada Day is canceled, the May 24th is canceled. At council we restricted the sale of fireworks for it, and it was proposed for May 24 and July 1, but we just didn't have the heart to say July 1 already, even though we're not going to have a parade. We'll have a few more meetings and I'm sure we'll have to cancel it, but it just seemed a little bit too extreme at the moment to really acknowledge and say we're not going to do any fireworks on Canada Day. So there's a lot. There's a whole list. You'll see it online. Virtually at the music in the park.
Right.
We just take for granted, and perhaps you don't even know that you're missing them. But we're right through till virtually September. All municipal events are pretty much canceled. There may be some opportunities in the fall to do things like, we'd like to acknowledge our volunteers, those kind of things, which we've had to put off. Everybody understands, but I would hate to think that that's the norm. We're going to continue to celebrate our citizens, our country, and other things that we need to do, and we're going to hopefully keep a high level of interest in culture, heritage, recreation. We just can't do some of the things we normally do. But at the same token, there's going to be some things coming out of this. I was dealing with the county on social issues, and there's more collaboration now, more attention, for those people who are more vulnerable or not as fortunate as the rest of us. There's a big rallying around that now. So I think there'll be some good things that will come out of all this, and I kind of look forward to saying, well, what can we pick out of this that we can do a better job?
In the email that I read today from Port Hope is that the decision for fall events is pretty much going to be made a little bit later on, midsummerish kind of thing. What influence does the fact that already some events in the relative area, like the Norwood Fair, which isn't until Thanksgiving weekend, have already been canceled?
I don't think it affects us at this point in time, where we will cancel when we need to. And there's a couple of factors with respect to that. The first factor obviously is safety and health, but the other factor gets into economics. Are there contracts, and our people need to have a certain notice to cancel an event? That'll be taken into account as well. Uh, it's rapidly changing, sort of week by week. The emergency order from the provincial government is going to pass soon. Uh, there is expectation that it might have to continue or not continue. I would assume and like to assume that I don't set myself up for for really a big disappointment. So I suggest people think of the worst scenario and assume that's how it's going to be. And if
Right.
it's not that way, you'll feel good.
You'll be pleasantly surprised.
If you do it the other way, you're going to be very disappointed. So I'm not going to set myself up for that disappointment. I'm going to continue right with that great approach that the community has, and support it, and work through this as the best we can. But I'm not going to put myself in a position to be sadly disappointed with the weather coming on, and maybe some things can't be resurrected. But as you saw today, things are slowly opening up. Garden centers are going to be, everybody wants to get out and get their hands dirty in the dirt come May.
Well, you can't go anywhere else, so you might as well be working on your garden. Can you imagine come the fall, the gardens that are going to be throughout the entire county? It's going to be spectacular.
You can only imagine there should be some sort of a contest, I guess.
Oh, and I'm sure there will be. It'll be
Yeah.
a virtual one. It'll be online, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But speaking of things online, I mean, you mentioned recognizing volunteers and stuff. We know the Civic Awards was canceled. Do you know if there's been any talk amongst the committee of maybe doing something, a virtual award ceremony, doing something online via Facebook Live or any one of those apps?
Not within the same timeline.
Right.
So we're looking and discussing, as you said, what can we do later in the year? It might be as early as September, and how would that look? The places like the Capitol Theater, are they going to be able to, accommodate some of these things? These sort of iconic, things and cultural events, within the municipality, are in jeopardy. So I think there's going to be, from my perspective anyway, some municipal requirement to not just say you guys have to look after yourselves. I think we need to be part of that process, along with the chamber, the HBIA, and the merchants on a regular basis, and all our cultural events, whether it be critical mass, whether it be the Capitol Theater, whether it be other art events. This is huge value, and I think heritage and cultural things have even more value in when times are a little tougher.
Yeah, and there's a lot of those events around, and you realize that even more so now that they're going to be going away for a little while. It's like, wow, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. The list just seems to go on and on and on. And you got to really think of too, when we come out of all of this, of the organizers of all of these events that have done these for years and years, and the hard work they've put into it. We just, when they do return, should they all get canceled, we need to support them even that much more.
Yeah, and I think we need to be committed to making sure these events, continue. It's sort of like you miss something, and then it's easy to miss it again. It's the fact that it's always being done. Um, the celebration for Canada Day will go on. It's just going to be in a different way. It might be in your backyard.
Right.
But the reality is, we as a municipality need to pick and choose and support the things that are critical to our citizens, to our well-being, our mental health. My personal tagline is a little bit is, is health and happiness and fun, vitality. Those are the things that we need to get out of life. And I think we can focus on that a little bit more. I'm already asking for a review of our strategic plan. Is it still appropriate given these circumstances? Could we, as an example, strengthen, our commitment to the environment, to trees, to ethical investments? Can we look at these a little bit better now that I think our community might be a little more understanding and sympathetic to expenditures in those areas than perhaps they would have been before?
One of the things too that's sort of is a byproduct of this, and the quietness out there of everybody being inside is wildlife, and how wildlife is now a little bit more prevalent. And one big issue in the municipality of Port Hope has been bear sightings.
Yeah.
Do we know, first of all, is there one bear, multiple bears, or do we even know that?
We believe there's only one bear. Yeah, and it's a hungry bear, but it's like Winnie the Pooh. It's not causing anybody any threats. So we're trying to make every effort so that we actually don't threaten the bear, because if that happens, we have to be destroyed. And the whole intent is to take this lovely poor creature, right, capture it, which we are planning to do, and take it to some place where it can live a good life compared to living in the urban municipality of Port Hope. We all love it, but it's not quite the place for the bear.
Right, exactly. Do we have any idea why it's taking so long to track this bear down and to relocate it? Like, the sightings have been happening for a while now.
Yeah, they're wily things. They're quite used to kind of hiding and what have you, and they get sightings, but they go long distances. They can move quite quickly and through areas and not even be noticed. I mean, it could probably go by people and you wouldn't even notice it. So, the fact of the matter is we have M&R, looking at it. So there's expertise. Our whole mandate is to catch it so we can release it prior to it getting into a bad situation. And a bad situation to me is people bothering it. It's not going to bother any people, So we'd like to just quietly, say you are going to get a taxi right out of town.
Right. And people need, just like the social distancing, and when you are going out, you need to be cognizant of what the right and wrong things are to do. And again, social distancing with a bear seems to me to be right at the top of a list of priorities.
I'd make it a lot more than 6 feet too.
Yeah, absolutely, because those things can move.
Yeah, and I want to just comment on your the words you're saying about wildlife and generally. I've had several people talk about what they feel are the increase in the number of birds, uh,
Hmm.
less pollution, animals kind of showing up, whether it be rabbits, coyotes, and what have you. It's been a very short period of time, but I think there is a lesson in here that we need to share this planet, with other forms of life. We can't just run roughshod over it. And this little window that we have in such a short period of time, I think for myself, clearly demonstrates how resilient our planet is and how readily it will respond if we'll just give it a chance.
People commenting about driving down the Don Valley Parkway and actually being able to see clearly the skyline of Toronto a lot further away than they have in the past. And again, the key point there is it hasn't really been that long.
Well, it really hasn't. And how used were we to looking up and seeing, contrails from jet planes? I think I saw one last week, I'm sorry for the industry. That's
Sure.
irrelevant. But from a environmental perspective and people realizing, do they really need to take? I've got two members of my family who are engineers and they tended to travel. They've been managing quite well at home. Imagine that. So these companies need to start to change. First off, it'll be better for the stock market, I would imagine. It'll be necessary.
Right.
But do all of us really need to do things the way we've been doing it? I think there's ways to do it better, and the technology like we're using now is getting so much better. I mean, I probably couldn't have used this technology a year ago. Now
Right.
I have no choice, and you have no choice. And guess what? I think it's working.
And I think people are going to understand as we do start to come out of this that there are going to be permanent changes, and we're getting used to it now. So that's definitely a factor there. Before I let you go, I do want to talk about the state. What's the state right now of open air burning in the urban area of the municipality?
Absolutely not allowed, other than with propane and gas type, fixtures, which you can have. Uh, Anything else is absolutely, not allowed. We did have a bit of a discussion because it, in some cases, seems a little draconian. Um, and so, I think as a council, as we move forward, we'll probably have a little closer look at that, because there are people who have, small barbecue type things in their backyard, which are wood and what have you. And if you're too strict on some of these things, people just break the law. So
Right.
we're better to say, here's the conditions under which you can have an outdoor fire. Uh, we would be happy to inspect it for you and make sure that you're following the rules, that you're safe. Those are things will open up as we move forward.
And that is what some of the other towns do. Coburg does. I know here where I am in Brighton, I'm in town and I have a fire permit and I have to call it in, make the fire department aware every single time that I'm going to light my fire.
The rural area does that, but we've been, I guess we're following the letter of the law. And when we had that discussion at council, some of us felt we need to revisit that because maybe it's just a bit too extreme. And it does two things. It puts our citizens at a disadvantage, but also puts our fire marshal and our firefighters at a disadvantage because they would have to go in and enforce something they may not even want to. So we do need to have a look at that, along with, quite frankly, a few other bylaws that are, kind of old.
Right. And see, there you go. There's something else. I mean, as we come out of this, everything's going to be looked at once again. Bob, I want to thank you very much for taking the time. Looking forward to having another chat. And hopefully the next time we talk, there'll be more things that have opened up.
Yep, it's been a pleasure, and always I'm glad you seem to be doing well.
Doing just fine. Just
Good to
fine.
hear.
I want to go out and see people. You've been watching Municipal Matters here on your TV. I'm your host, York Bell Smith, and we will see you next time.